In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That's how the Bible begins, with a bold poetic statement about the origin of everything. Today we're diving into the book of Genesis, the very first book of the Bible. Whether you're new to the Bible or just want a clearer understanding, this is your guide to one of the most foundational and fascinating books in all of Scripture. Let's explore what Genesis is, what it teaches, and why it still matters today. Genesis is the first of the 66 books of the Bible. It's part of the Torah, also known as the Pentateuch, the first 5 books. Traditionally attributed to Moses, the word Genesis means origin or beginning. And that's exactly what this book is about: the beginning of the universe, the beginning of life, the beginning of humanity, the beginning of sin, and the beginning of God's redemptive plan. Genesis is both history and theology. It's not just about what happened, but also why it matters. The structure of Genesis is divided into 2 major parts. First, chapters 1 through 11 cover what is known as primeval history, the very early history of the world. Then, chapters 12 through 50 focus on the patriarchal history, the story of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph, the ancestors of the nation of Israel. Let's start at the very beginning. In Genesis chapter 1, God creates the world in 6 days and rests on the 7th. Light, sky, land, sea, stars, animals, and finally, humanity, made in God's image. It's not just a story about how things were made. It's a powerful statement that the universe has order, beauty, purpose, and a creator behind it all. In Genesis chapter 2, we see the creation of the first man and woman, Adam and Eve, and the beginning of their life in the Garden of Eden. But in chapter 3, everything changes. Adam and Eve disobey God by eating from the one tree he commanded them not to touch. This moment, known as the fall, introduces sin into the world. It breaks the perfect relationship between God and humanity and brings pain, shame, and death into human experience. But even here, in the midst of judgment, God gives a promise that one day, a descendant of Eve will crush the serpent, the symbol of evil, from chapters 4 to 11. Human history spirals. Cain kills his brother Abel. Humanity becomes violent and corrupt. God sends a great flood but saves Noah and his family in the ark. After the flood, people again turn to pride, building the Tower of Babel in an attempt to make a name for themselves. God confuses their language and scatters them across the earth. These early chapters show the pattern of human sin and God's grace. Over and over again, humanity fails. And over God responds with mercy and purpose. In Genesis chapter 12, the story shifts. God calls a man named Abram, later renamed Abraham, and makes him a covenant. I will make you into a great nation, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. This promise becomes the foundation of the rest of the Bible. Abraham's life is a journey of faith, not perfect, but persistent. He trusts God, but also struggles with doubt, fear, and impatience. Still, God remains faithful. Abraham's son Isaac carries the promise forward. Isaac's son Jacob, later renamed Israel, becomes the father of 12 sons, who will eventually form the 12 tribes of Israel. Jacob's life is full of conflict, transformation, and encounters with God. One of Jacob's sons, Joseph, becomes the focus of the final chapters of Genesis. Joseph is betrayed by his brothers and sold into slavery. He ends up in Egypt, where, after years of hardship, he rises to power and eventually saves his family during a time of famine. The book of Genesis ends with Joseph's family, the people of Israel, living in Egypt, setting the stage for the events of the next book, Exodus. Now let's highlight some key themes in Genesis. First, God as creator. Genesis makes it clear that the world isn't an accident. It was created with design, order, and meaning. Second, human dignity and sin. Humans are made in God's image, with value and purpose, but sin has distorted that image and introduced suffering into the world. Third, covenant and promise. Even when people fail, God keeps his word. His plan to bless the world through Abraham's family is set in motion. And finally, faith and trust. The lives of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph are stories of imperfect people learning to trust a perfect God. So, why does Genesis still matter today? Because it's not just ancient history, it's the beginning of our story. It explains why the world is beautiful yet broken. It introduces the God who created us, loves us, and is working to restore what was lost. It lays the foundation for everything else in the Bible, from sin to salvation, from creation to new creation. The book of Genesis is the beginning of everything, and it's only the first chapter in the greatest story ever told. If you found this helpful, be sure to like, subscribe, and join us as we journey through every book of the Bible, one story at a time. Thanks for watching, and remember, in the beginning, God, and he's still at work today.